What's up, nerd family? Welcome once again to the Poindexter Lounge. My name is Enosh, aka Enosh Vet, and it is good to have you with me in the lounge. You know, trust me, it's just good to have anybody in the lounge right now after the technical difficulties I just had. But you know what? StreamYard and I, we're on talking terms again, and we're all good. But hey, we're here. We're now. You're here, hopefully still. And for those of you coming in, thank you for your patience. I definitely appreciate it. You guys are all awesome. But hey, if this is your first time to the lounge, just know that the Poindexter Lounge is a place for nerds. It's a place where you and me and my friends and my crew can get together and talk about the things that we love. Things like TV shows, movies, games, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, superheroes, toys, Star Wars, for sure, and so much more. And if those are things that you love, if those are things that get your force moving, if those are things that put you into hyperdrive, then ladies and gentlemen, you need to hit that subscribe button. You need to hit that notification bell so that you know when we're going to put out new videos, so that you're here and part of this growing community of nerds. That's right. We proudly wear that nerd moniker. We don't make any bones about it. We are nerds through and through. And so if that's you, you have found the right place, and I am glad to have you here. So please hit that subscribe button and join up, become part of this growing community, because we got a great growing community. Speaking of that, right off the bat, we're not going to get into a lot of things here off the top of the show, because we're going to jump right into our topic today. But I do want to say a special thank you to everyone who supports the channel, whether or not you support it through Patreon or Super Chats or whatever. You're so awesome. And now memberships. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Dawson, who is on the panel tonight. You can't buy your way in, but it does help. Brian, Master of None, Del Rey, McMillan, Tony, CJ Monk, Cylon Scotty, Jeff Glotfelty, Ross Byrne, Donald Parker, Justin Reed, Darth Tasty, and everyone who gives in the super chats. And then, of course, our members. Thank you to all of our members. You guys are awesome. That's right. Garguts Entertainment, Aaron Entertainment, Gavin Harwood, Mark Moran, Darth Tasty 2099. Look, they're on again. And Cylon Scotty. And I added Sophie because she's right there with him. And thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you guys for believing in the Poindexter Lounge. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Now, we've got an awesome panel of people here tonight. Tonight will be the start of something that I hope will be great, and I hope will be a wonderful series that you guys will all enjoy. Tonight, we start with Let's Talk Star Wars, Star Wars Episode 1, The Fandom Menace, and we have an awesome crew. And first of all, I'd be amiss if I did not welcome in my better half. Ladies and gentlemen, you love her. You're always asking where she is. Why isn't she on the channel that much anymore? It's because she doesn't stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning like I do, answering all your nerd questions up in here. Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Tifftastic. How are you, Tifftastic?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing good. I don't have any on-call phone anymore, so it's nice to just come home and be home. So when you do streams around this time, I can actually join. So
Awesome. Well, Tiff, you want to just move your head a little bit and show people like our Star Wars cred. This is what is right above our bed, right here. Shows you, ladies and gentlemen, we're not playing around here. This is. And
I'm wearing my Rebel. I don't know if I can do this correctly.
That's our Star Wars headboard right there, like
that I made.
That she made. It's all real, folks. It's all real. So.
And I'm wearing my Rebel Alliance shirt that I got from Galaxy's Edge.
There you go. So it's totally legit. Tiff, thank you for being here tonight and for being a female perspective on Star Wars. And then also making his debut in the lounge, this guy, I tell you what, I've loved his content. If you are not subscribed to Goldman, you need to be subscribed to the Goldman. If you love Star Wars, if you even just like Star Wars, and like maybe you watched a Star Wars movie when you were a kid and you're not really sure that you remember quite that much about it, but you remember you kind of liked it, you need to listen to this guy, because this guy has got some awesome takes, and that's why I invited him to be here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, he's been making a storm lately with some of his hot takes on stuff, just going against the norm. Welcome to the Poindexter Lounge, the Goldman. Welcome.
Well, I'm beyond humbled by everything you said. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to talk about all the movies, starting with the Phantom Menace. Although, when you were introducing the topic, you did say the Fandom Menace.
Did I say the Fandom Menace? Did I?
You did.
Or did I say it fast?
I heard fandom, but it's okay. We're talking about the movie here. So
yeah, okay.
I'm
Well,
looking
you know,
forward to this.
we're definitely not talking about the fandom menace for sure. Maybe it's just my Michigan accent.
I don't know. That's what I heard, but no worries. But yeah, thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to do this. So let's go.
Awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, a man that, honest to God, like every time I think that this guy has just like superseded all my thoughts possibly of him, that I couldn't think any more highly of him. He goes above and beyond. We got all kinds of interesting surprises and funny things planned for you guys. You have no clue. Ladies and gentlemen, always welcome here in the lounge, my younger self, ladies and gentlemen, I went back in time and I've now like tried to make sure that we set things right and that he doesn't just completely destroy the space-time continuum. Ladies and gentlemen, Dawson from Nerdy in Many Ways.
How's it going, guys? Your wife's right there, and you're like praising me like this is crazy. You gotta hide it a little bit, man.
It's okay.
I'm sorry, man. It's a man crush. What can I say? It's just, you know, if you don't love yourself, who else is gonna love you, right?
Well, very wise words.
Yes.
They're true.
So if I left I wore my Nimwa hat all day today at work, and was
needed
having
a break.
great time. Yes, I was having fun. Trying to explain to people what Nimwa meant, just making up stuff, you know.
I don't know what that means.
It's his hat. It's the
my channel.
It's his channel,
okay.
Nerdy in Many Ways. Yeah. So,
all right.
So, but it says that. So, hey, welcome to everyone in the chat. You guys are awesome. I see all of you. I'm thankful for all of you. Don't forget that memberships are available because you guys are going to see some great people in here using some awesome new emojis and things like that. And you can be a part of that. You can have that too. But I am glad to have all of you here. We're not going to go down the list because we want to get to the good stuff. All right, so we're going to jump right in because, like I said, tonight we're starting this new series about Let's Talk Star Wars, starting with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
There you
That's
go.
right. The Phantom Menace. And we're going to just talk about these movies because, you know, guys, back in what was it, Tiffany? Like October, November of last year, yeah. I found that like the negativity had just been building and building and building about Star Wars. And I had just gotten to a point where I'd really had enough, you know, as someone who is definitely a fan of Star Wars through and through. I mean, ever since I can't even remember never being a Star Wars fan. I mean, I got video of me, you know, at 3 years old, you know, playing with Star Wars and talking about Star Wars on old, you know, Super 8, you know, video. And so the thing is like, I started seeing all these people like they claim to love Star Wars, yet apparently just can't have a discussion about Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And I, you know, I know Goldman, you've stirred up a lot of stuff with your new video about how Rey is not a Mary Sue, which I absolutely love. I absolutely love. You guys got to go check that. If you have not checked it out, even if you think she's a Mary Sue, you got to go check that out because it's a phenomenal, well put. Look, I can rant all day about what I believe about Star Wars. This guy put in the work, man. It's a 2-hour video and it's like, it's legit. And so I just started getting to a point where it's like, we started this little campaign called #ILoveStarWars, which it wasn't to try to change people's minds. Look, if you don't like the sequel trilogy, it's okay. If you don't like, you know, the Last Jedi, I don't understand it, but I still love you, you know, and I'm not going to be mad at you, you know. But what I think is weird is like even today I was on Twitter, guys, and well,
that's your first mistake because you're on
Twitter. I know, right? Yeah, I know. But I was on Twitter and somebody posted something, a picture of a Blu-ray of The Last Jedi, and it said it had a $12.99 sticker on it, and it said, who would pay $12.99 for this? And like all these, you know, comments like, not me. You couldn't pay me $12.99. You couldn't pay me $50 to watch this movie again. And just like this long list of stuff. And all I said was, yep, I would. I love that movie.
I'd pay double.
Yeah, right? Like I'd pay again to go see it right now in the theater if it was in the theater. But all of a sudden, man, like clockwork, and I should have known, but inundated, right? You know, like why I'm wrong. No, people just can't accept the fact that somebody might like it, that they don't like.
Your opinion is different from me? How dare you?
Oh man. And so, but Goldman, you said something, and I want you to share what you said, because I think you've seen me share your comment about some people's least favorite movie. If you could share that comment.
Okay, so the one about how people's least favorite movies is someone else's favorite.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have the belief that everyone has their own Star Wars ranking, right? Everyone has their favorite, everyone has their least favorite. But I believe that it doesn't matter what your least favorite movie is. It doesn't matter how much you hate it, even if you like it and still your least favorite. It's still someone else's favorite Star Wars movie. And when I said that on Twitter, I got replies saying, "Oh, who loves Attack of the Clones? Who loves The Phantom Menace? Who loves The Rise of Skywalker?" And I've got responses of people saying The Rise of Skywalker is my favorite Star Wars film. Attack of the Clones is my favorite Star Wars film. And I don't think these people are lying to me. No. So when you just crap on a movie so much, there's a difference between criticizing a movie, because, you know, film criticism is important. But when you just bash on a movie and you insult the people who love it, and you say, "Oh, if you think Attack of the Clones is a good movie, you're stupid," or if you think The Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker is a good movie, you're stupid, it just doesn't make other people feel good. It's because, you know, I see it all the time. People crap on The Last Jedi, which is one of my favorite movies, and I don't like that. So what I want from the fandom is that we don't judge people based off of their opinions, that we don't label people based off of their opinions. And just because someone may love a movie, you don't have to understand why. I think it's just important to respect it. And that's what I said on Twitter.
Yeah, I think that man, that sums up exactly, man. That Anakin put it best, or no, well, I shouldn't say Anakin put it best.
This is so wizard, Annie.
because man, you sum up how I feel about it. Like there was a time when I absolutely hated Attack of the Clones. Okay, like I didn't want to watch it. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then back in 2015, we had a Star Wars party getting ready for, you know, the new sequels, you know, and everything.
Force Awakens.
Yeah, and so we show, you know, we played all the movies that we played all 6 movies, and we had everybody over. And watching Attack of the Clones that time, for some reason, it was like I finally got it. Like it literally about. Yeah, that movie came out in like 2002. It took me literally 13 years, and having watched that movie so many times, just going, it's just, oh, it's stupid, it's dumb, oh man, what's going on? I hate the wooden acting, I hate this, I hate that. And then all of a sudden it was like, what just happened here? Like, they didn't change the movie, something in me changed, you know? And so that's just good stuff. But so obviously we live in a world where post sequels, and I think a lot of people forget what the reaction was to the prequels. You know, when I hear people say, "Oh, nobody is ever going to love The Last Jedi. No one is that history is not going to redeem these movies. That 10 years from now, people are still going to hate them with such vitriol and just the way that they do now." I think about the prequels because
I said before, like, there was a video or stream that I was on where I was talking about this, and I said, people looked at the prequel trilogy, people hated it because the CGI, they hated some of the acting, they hated the romance between Anakin and Padme, and now people look back on it with fondness, and people look back on it with fond memories. Like, even Star Wars Episode 3 is my favorite Star Wars movie ever, and so like people look back on it and say like, "Oh yeah, Star Wars Episode 3 was great," but I remember back then people were like, "Oh man, I hate these new movies." My dad is one of those people that still hates them, but there's people who have warmed up to it, and so like, you just gotta let movies age, let them age, and also let yourself age and change, like you just said, Enosh.
Yeah. And so what I wanted to do with this series was I wanted to go back because of the thing that we started a few months ago with this hashtag I love Star Wars. I would just do these live streams, and I would just talk about it, and I would just title them hashtag I love Star Wars, and I would encourage people to use that hashtag and not try to change. I had so many people come into my streams like both guns blazing, trying to tell me how I was stupid, I was wrong. And then by like an hour later, when we were done talking, they were like, oh, okay. And like, they wouldn't hate me anymore. And then they'd be like, I'm going to subscribe to the channel. Thanks. I appreciate your, what you're saying. And so that's what I want to do. I want there to be dialogue. I want us to talk about all these films from start to be, like all of them. So the saga films and the two, additional films. And let's go through these films in a critiquing way, talk about them, but let's not just throw out the stuff, just like, oh, it just sucks. It just, oh, I didn't like this. I didn't like that. It just sucks, sucks. But to actually be constructive with our criticisms, if we have them, to be constructive with our comments, and and just have a good time, a good time doing it. So I encourage everyone out there to just kind of cleanse your palate as we go into this, and maybe
hear you nothing that I say. You must unlearn what you have learned.
So just go with us on this, and let's go on an adventure together as we talk Star Wars, starting with Star Wars Episode 1. Now, guys, Goldman, let's start with you since you're this is your first time kind of here. What are your first memories and impressions of Star Wars Episode 1?
Okay, so I'm a younger fella. I don't really. My earliest Star Wars memory is I remember asking my mom, because I remember I was looking at all the VHS tapes. There was Episode 4, 5, 6, 1, and 2. I was like, Mom, where's Episode 3? So she had to explain to me that it came out in reverse order. It was a little confusing to me back then. So that's my earliest memory. So there was never a time where it was just there's no Star Wars trilogy to me. It's always been the Star Wars saga for me. So I don't really remember that much around that time. But some of my fondest memories of the movie, I do have very fond memories of the movie. I remember when I was younger, one day for Christmas, I got the MTT Lego, the thing that they have at the end of the Battle of Naboo that takes out all the droids. And I was just so excited, and it came with all these battle droids. And at the time, I only had 2 Lego battle droids, and I was like, oh, I really want more so I can have a battle between the clones and the battle droids. And when I got the MTT, it had like 20 of them, and there was different colored ones. It was so cool. And I think that's what people forget is what Star Wars is really about. Yeah, I don't think The Phantom Menace is that good of a movie, but for people like me who are that young, who are just so excited to watch the battles, to reenact them with all the toys, that's what Star Wars is really about. And even though I'm not a big fan of the movie, I think in hindsight, what George Lucas did worked. I mean, and I'm not the only one who wanted to play with toys of Darth Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, or Jar Jar even. And I think people forget that. And even though in hindsight, when I grow up, I like the movie a little bit less each time, but I still have so many fond memories of when I was younger, how much I loved the film and all the prequels, really. Those are some of my earliest memories, just playing with the toys, reenacting the Battle of Naboo, all the scenes, the lightsaber fight, the Gungan battle versus the droids, Padme storming Theed, and couldn't really do the space battle, but yeah, it was so much fun. So those are probably my fondest memories of the movie, just reenacting the scenes with the toys, being amazed by the worlds. Because, back then I didn't know what CGI was. It felt real. And when we get older, we look at the CGI. It doesn't look the best, but I think that matters to someone who is 5, 6 years old. No. So my fondest memories of this film are how much it impacted me as a child.
Man, that's cool. That's cool. Dawson, what are your some? I know you guys are the young guys. So what are your what are your first memories?
So I remember growing up, my dad went to see, of course, the first Star Wars in theaters, and so he's been a lifelong Star Wars fan. And I remember when I was very, very young, my dad started to introduce me to Star Wars. But he's like, you know what? There's this first Star Wars episode, but I'm going to show you the older ones first. And so he showed me, of course, A New Hope, showed me Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and we had those VHS tapes. And I think I watched Return of the Jedi more than any Star Wars film. But then I watched Star Wars Episode 1. And same thing with Goldman. My parents explained to me the whole reverse order thing of how they released it. And after a little processing, my young brain started to understand what was going on. And one of my first memories of Episode 1 is that poster they had of young Anakin walking on Tatooine and his shadow being the shape of Darth Vader. And I remember as a kid being really confused, what's going on there? And then, and I remember And actually, I'm actually kind of the opposite as far as Goldman with this movie. Was that the more that I watch it, the more I actually appreciate it, the more I love about it. It's an interesting thing with that. But I remember I had a Jar Jar Binks toy. I had a Darth Maul toy that was magnetized in the middle, so you could split it in half. I had all of these prequel toys, but I just remember really being fond of that film as a little kid. And although, like Goldman said, you can look at things like the CGI and like some of the acting and stuff, and you can recognize, like, critically, like, yeah, some of those things weren't great. But it's one that I always go back to, and in fact, it's probably in my top 5 when it comes to Star Wars films, if I'm being honest. So it's one that I've grown up always really cherishing, and that appreciation has only grown since being a kid.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff right there. Tiffany.
Yes.
Always popular here on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, she's my wife. She's my wife of 8 years, and I love her very much. And Brazil really likes Tiffany. And hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
I just had some Brazilian cheese bread for dinner tonight, so
there you go.
That's good stuff. That's good
I
stuff.
love that.
But Tiff, so I know you're fully in now. Like I couldn't ask for a better wife than this woman. Let me tell you. Look, if you take a look at my Star Wars room, you'll know that, like, obviously I couldn't ask for a better wife than this woman right here. But you were a little late to the Star Wars game. But once you were here, you're a little late to this nerd world and stuff. You liked stuff, but you weren't as, like, into it. So what are your first thoughts of Star Wars Episode 1?
Well, being an older lady, which I realized at my new job, I'm like one of the 2 oldest of the people that I work with, but that's okay. I make it cool. But the thing is I had parents and friends and stuff that just didn't feel like, they weren't into it. They didn't want to show me it. I didn't want to watch it by myself. So it took forever to really watch it. My first, I guess, way that I kind of was introduced into Star Wars was through Spaceballs, because I was a big Mel Brooks fan.
Wow.
So I watched Spaceballs before I watched Star Wars. Which made everything it's so much funnier when I finally did see it. But ironically, though, I did watch it.
You actually understood some of those jokes now.
I did. I just thought it was hilarious because it was Mel Brooks. Then after seeing it, I was like, that makes more sense.
Well, yeah, because
Where? When? Who?
Exactly. But I think it was my memories of watching it was I had to watch it in the order that it came out. So I had to watch it 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. And I actually ironically got to watch it the first time with you. And what I liked about it, and where I always try and get people that we know who want to see it for the first time to watch it with you, because it's like jumping into a different world. So it was nice to watch it with Enosh when if I didn't understand something, he would stop it and explain it to me so I understood. And it kind of made me like just jump into it that much more. So I think not only watching it, falling in love with it myself, but then, learning it. And each time I've seen it with him, with friends, like him though, there's things that, I wasn't crazy about the prequels myself. Because I did enjoy the originals. I know, even though I didn't watch the movies at first, it was something that I knew that I knew of. I loved Mark Hamill. I loved, all the original people in those movies. But again, like the same thing, you guys mentioned, the effects weren't that great, but it's like me and Enosh are introducing our boys. Like we just watched Weird Science the other day. And we just, we're watching these movies from the 80s and the 70s, and they're looking at us and they're laughing like, look at those graphics. And I'm like, yeah, but to us back then, that was actually really cool. And that was actually pretty good for that year.
Yeah.
So I think of it that way too. The more I watch it, the older I get, I enjoy little pieces, that much more. So I'm enjoying it.
That's like when my family and I watched The Last Starfighter with my dad.
Oh, yeah. We still have to get to that one, by the way.
Yeah. And so, like, I remember watching it a couple of months back, just all our family together. And we did the same thing. We kind of looked at some scenes like, oh my goodness, like, look how far CGI has come. My dad's like, look, back in the day, this thing was fantastic. I'm just looking at it like, this is like a PlayStation 1. Like
the old He-Man movie.
Yeah. All right. So Ambassadorial Wing brings up a great segue into my first thoughts of it, because look, I was born in 76. Some of my first memories as a human being are of going to see Star Wars. I grew up in Las Vegas, and like I remember Star Wars being the phenomenon that it was. And you can say, how can you remember that, Enosh, at a year old? Because we went every week. It was literally part of our life. Like we went every week. And so the thing is that like I have vivid memories of when I was a kid. Like I often tell my dad like about a time when apparently I had stayed over at his house. My parents got divorced when I was like a year and a half. And I tell him that I remembered when I first told him this, he was like, there's no way, Enosh. And I literally explained to him what his apartment looked like back then, like where he took me, like how the parking lot and everything. And he just looked at me like, there's no way, Enosh. You were like a year old. And I just remember those things. That being said, I've always been a Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars. I've lived and breathed Star Wars my entire life. And man, I remember being a kid and reading like Starlog magazine or like different magazines that came out, and it would talk about this alleged thing that happened between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader back in the day, and that like somehow they fought and Darth Vader fell into a volcano, and that was how he ended up the way that he was. And it was like, whoa, what would that look like? You know, like what would that be like? And I was always a kid. Like we were the last family probably to have a VCR, but my friend Wayne down the street had a VCR, and he had like all these bootleg VHS tapes because his parents would like bootleg them. And he had Return of the Jedi. And every time I'd go over there, we'd watch all these movies. That's how I was introduced to Back to the Future and Nightmare on Elm Street and like all those 80s classic movies. And every time I go over there, I'm like, dude, you have Return of the Jedi here. You can watch Return of the Jedi anytime you want. Why aren't you watching Return of the Jedi with me? And he's just like, I don't care about that. And I'm just like, oh. And so that was just it. And so, man, you know, when I found out that they were actually going to make the prequels, I just lost my mind. Like I was so excited. And I remember the build up for episode 1, just seeing, I had Star Wars. I got a subscription to Star Wars Insider magazine, and you get all the things and all the pictures and stuff, and you'd see pictures of, you know, Padme and all these, you know, and it was different. It was different than Star Wars, you know, than the Star Wars I remember, because the Star Wars I remember was kind of claustrophobic. It was, you know, it was sets and stuff, and this was like there was a queen, and then there's this Darth Maul guy that it's like, oh my gosh, he's got to be like this really awesome character, and I would just sit there and like think about him like taunting like Obi-Wan or something, you know, like Darth Vader taunted Luke, you know, just imagining that was how this had to go, right? And then like Ambassador Oil Wings says here, you know, you remember standing in line. So I'm the one who got all my friends together, and I said, because then by the time I got older, we'd have these parties and we'd watch the original trilogy, right? And so I'm the one, I got us all together, and I said, I'm going to go buy us tickets. And I took the day off of work, and I went and stood in line for the day that the tickets came out. And I was first in line, and I had waited out there for like 4 hours. And as soon as the box office opened, I bought everybody had pitched in, and we all had it. And I bought all of our tickets. And then we went to go see the movie. And I just kind of kept waiting for it to get good. The first time I saw, it wasn't bad at first, but like I literally saw the movie 6 times in the theater. And it was like I kept waiting for the movie to be something that it wasn't. And maybe that's why I've learned a lesson about Star Wars, is that Star Wars is not about me. Star Wars is about Star Wars. It's a story, and you got to take it for what it is. And I've learned that I don't want to dictate what the story is. I want to be told the story. And like any good story, there's parts of the story that, okay, I don't really relate with that. And then there's parts of the story that I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I relate with that completely, right? And I get all excited about it. But so like we went to go see it, and I just remember, like, even though I didn't think it was the greatest movie, I was still stoked. I was so stoked, man, to see a young Obi-Wan, to meet Qui-Gon Jinn, you know, and to see some, you know, like obviously now, what did you guys think of the original puppet of Yoda?
It was odd.
It was odd.
Like it worked, but like I remember being a little kid and thinking like, why did they change it so much from the original puppet? Like, why not just like make a slightly younger version of that puppet? But they like kind of restructured his face. They made him look just the structure of his face is completely different. Of course, as different as it could be for Yoda's species. And I remember looking at just like and comparing that to Empire Strikes Back, and I'm just like, why'd they do that? Which is why I'm like, I'm one of those people that am kind of glad they went and replaced him with the CGI version of that's in the rest of the prequels, because like then there's consistency there, at least within the prequels.
Yes.
I remember when I was younger, my two favorites were Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and in those movies, Yoda looks the same. So I had my mental picture of that's what Yoda looks like. And then when I was watching the original, I was like, okay, it's older, they used a puppet, I get it. And then in the Phantom Menace, I don't know, I can't describe it. He looked like older than he did in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and it was just really weird.
Yes.
I can't put it in words exactly, but it just felt really off. And then I remember, I think I got the 2011 Blu-rays back in 2011, 2012, and I think that's the first time they fixed it. Is either that or the Disney Plus editions. Not sure which ones, but
I think it was 2011. Yeah,
it was 2011. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I saw it fixed, I was like, thank God. I'm not a big fan of like special edition changes. I believe that what comes out, that should be what stays. I get George Lucas likes to fix things. But yeah, that puppet looked awful.
McClunky. It just keeps going on. it's like it's never ending. It's never ending. Tiffany, now by the time you had watched episode 1, you had seen the original Yoda puppet. You had seen, I mean, and I don't understand, like with technology being so much better, how do you make a worse puppet?
I don't know.
Maybe it was George Lucas's attempt to make him look younger, but it didn't work for me.
Bret Hart?
It was strange. They made his eyes like bigger. They made his nose like stick out further.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And if he's 900 years old, like does like 20 some years make that big of a difference? Like,
I guess it's fair, but like as far as like the age, but like the looks were
it's just interesting. But I'm sorry, Tiff, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying there?
Oh no, I was just saying you were mentioning I had seen the originals, so I had seen the puppet, and I like the old school puppet that sounded like Grover. So the same voice of Grover, but I wasn't crazy about, I think because I had watched the original order, I kind of liked the puppet from the older ones, and I wasn't crazy about, especially in the scenes when he was like jumping around with his lightsaber, and I'm like, hold on, he was like walking super slow in the old ones, and now all of a sudden he can be all there, so
it's the Force. It's the Force. Every movie we find out something just a little bit new about the Force. About the Force, But so I remember seeing that, and I just now we got to get to it. We got to talk about it. It's the thing that's out there. The star of the movie.
Oh boy.
the hype that was around the character. He was going to be the next big thing. Everybody was going to,
the chosen one.
Yes, everybody was going to love him. He's George Lucas's best friend up to that point. Every interview that you see leading up to it was about this guy. Yes, I'm talking about Jar Jar Binks. Oh man, Jar Jar Binks. So you guys were younger. So I'm curious what your initial reactions to Jar Jar Binks was.
I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
See, for me, he was always just a character in Star Wars. Back when I was talking about my younger self playing with all the battles, to me, Jar Jar wasn't annoying. I don't remember particularly like loving him. He to me, he was just a character in Star Wars. I had no clue he was widely hated. There was a period of time where when I was younger, I was really into Star Wars until maybe like 2008, 2009. And then I didn't fall out of love with Star Wars. I kind of just stopped being interested. And then about when Disney bought Star Wars, I got back into it. And then I rewatched the movies and I was like, okay, yeah, the prequels aren't the best. And Jar Jar's kind of annoying. But then as I got older, I don't know, maybe I'm just a weirdo or a freak. But like when I watch Jar Jar, I kind of enjoy it. like he's annoying, sure, but I just find like some of the things he does, I find it funny. I don't think it's done well, but maybe just because I have such a when I'm watching Star Wars, I'm able to mentally put myself at a significantly younger age. I just really like I watch Jar Jar and I just laugh. I'm like, it's so stupid, but I love it. Like that's Star Wars. Star Wars, not everything's supposed to be perfect. No, Star Wars is silly, and so is Jar Jar. I understand him being annoying, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just giving the film too much credit, but I somewhat enjoy watching Jar Jar. Somewhat.
Excuse me.
It's funny. I still say that. I'll if I'm with my friends and I'm walking by, I'll say "excuse me" and like, huh? Like, that's Star Wars.
I just remember like I had a really hard time like understanding him the first time I watched the movie. I was like, what is he saying? Like when he says "I spec," and I'm like, is he saying I suspect? Like, and it was like the ability to speak, and I'm like, oh, he was saying speak,
or the Misa.
Yeah.
Misa. You know what I did recently? I watched recently a few months ago. I watched The Phantom Menace with subtitles, and it was just like watching a different movie with Jar Jar. I was like, oh, that's what he said, because I never really put the thought in. I'm like, oh, he's saying that. Oh, yeah. You should try it if you haven't done it.
I'll definitely have
We'll have to now.
Turns out he's been cussing this whole time.
Oh,
turns out stinky poo means like the F word, like 5 times.
Right. Right. So Nerdy, what was your opinion of him?
I don't know if any of you guys have seen The Office, but there's a scene where Ryan talks about this goldfish that died and his parents had like a funeral for him and they were sending it to a farm. And he says, I was 5 at the time. And even then I thought, I'm a little too young for this. I was 5. And that's like Jar Jar doesn't bother me. I don't hate the character, but like he's one of those parts in the movie where I just kind of watch and I like kind of shrug it off. Like, okay, he stepped in poo. Okay, he just shocked himself with a pod racer. Okay, he said something weird. It's one of those things I shrug off, but I don't hate.
Oh, Goberfish!
Oh, that was good. That was good.
That's bad varmint.
Bad vomit.
Like, what? What is that word? Like, what is he saying?
Like, again, it's probably a cuss word.
Right.
But I remember watching it, and I it's one of those things where like I can deal with it, but I wouldn't be mad if it weren't in the movie altogether. It's one of those things where like, you know, but again, like Goldman, I can definitely understand why some people would like straight up just hate his guts. And like there was even like I remember when the build up for The Force Awakens was happening, when there was like the scene in the trailer where someone was theorizing that there was like the skull of Jar Jar Binks. Like, oh, they're going to show that he died. They're going to pander to Star Wars fans who hate Jar Jar Binks. And I was like, okay, that's kind of extreme. And they didn't do that. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Tip, what do you think of Jar Jar?
I actually agree with what someone said in the comments that I like Goldman. He wasn't my favorite. But I didn't like really like crazy hate him. I think maybe it was because I came in a little bit later. But I thought that some of the stuff that Annie said as a little kid was more weird and outlandish.
Oh, yeah.
You know, yippee and like spinning. That's a good. I mean, I guess to me, it's just like there was some, you know, there's other things that annoyed me more than Jar Jar did. So that's where I kind of stand. I didn't love him, didn't hate him, and there was other people and other characters that got on my nerves a little more.
I will say though, I do really appreciate, especially in meme culture now, especially before the Force Awakens came out. I remember seeing these videos. It was like the Force Awakens trailer, but every time it's Jar Jar, and you hear "Wah!" Like every time like it pops up, it's just great. And then there was another good video. It was like how C-3PO got his red arm. It's an animated thing, and he walks up to Jar Jar, just like punches him in the heart and grabs his heart, and Jar Jar's like ah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe all that's why I love Jar Jar, but I should say
I love Robot Chicken, the episode where Jar Jar dies and comes back as a Force ghost and just like taunts Anakin. Annie, we can be so friends forever, never. His frozen body floating in his face, and it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, you know, like Jar Jar is just Jar Jar, you know, like, and it's kind of weird how he disappears from the prequels because he's such a major part, obviously, of Episode 1. Episode 2, I mean, he's you know, he plays a big part in the movies, but like he as being a central character, it's kind of like unlike a lot of other characters in Star Wars. Usually when they introduced a main character, they're consistent throughout. And I know that that's from George Lucas wanting him to be a consistent character, but not really maybe doing what he wanted him to do. And just
although what's interesting about Jar Jar, and we'll probably talk about this whenever we talk about the other episodes, but he ends up becoming vital in Episode 3.
Yes.
Very vital, which is weird. If you're not paying attention, you won't notice. But if it weren't for him, things wouldn't have turned out the way they did in Episode 3.
Yeah.
I actually don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, we'll get to that when we talk about Episode 3.
I know you see him like twice, like at Padme's funeral and in the beginning, but I'm curious to see what you have to say.
Yeah.
But this comment right here, so this is interesting because as a Black Series Star Wars collector, Jar Jar has not yet appeared as a figure, and Jar Jar was just voted. It's interesting to see how the character has kind of garnered a
cult following,
yeah, a little bit. And so now Jar Jar was just voted on, and it was just unanimous. People wanted a Jar Jar figure, and I think that's cool. I didn't really think that we'd get back to that point, but that goes back to the point that things change. People can literally hate something and cry out for that person to die. I mean, you know, those of us who are DC fans, Jason Todd, literally in the hands of the fans, was killed, murdered, totally gone. 20 some odd years, 30 years. Bring him back. Everybody loves him. Everybody loves him as a character, you know? And so things do change. Now, what did you guys think of Qui-Gon as a character?
You go first.
Okay.
No, you do it.
I love Liam Neeson. I love him as an actor. And I thought Qui-Gon was a very, very cool look into what a traditional, well, I guess Qui-Gon was not necessarily traditional. He was kind of his own man, but how a Jedi back then, that was kind of just different mentality, but just a Jedi overall. How a Jedi looked in the old Republic in this prequel trilogy before you know the Empire took over. He really set the standard for what a Jedi was. You know what the Republic or what the galaxy lost when the Jedi were destroyed. And I thought that was really cool to look into that. Of course, you have his interactions with the council and everything, and I love his calm demeanor in the movie. He's easily the best performance of the movie, in my opinion, is Qui-Gon Jinn. And the only thing that I am disappointed with his character is that we didn't get to see more of him. That's the only thing that I'm disappointed at when it comes to his character, because I loved his character. I wanted to see more of him. I loved his interactions with Obi-Wan. Again, I just loved it. I really have nothing negative to say about Qui-Gon Jinn, honestly.
All right. So for me, I don't know, it's hard to talk about just the movie because one way that I like to try and like movies I'm not a big fan of is I try to find other reasons to like it outside of the movie.
Sure,
it doesn't mean I think the movie is better, but like I've read a lot of the books. Like there's a good book on Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. I've watched the Clone Wars. I've read this book where it talks about how Qui-Gon's Force Ghost spoke to Obi-Wan during the events of Episode 4. So when I look at all that, I think Qui-Gon's a really interesting character. But when I'm just looking at The Phantom Menace as a film, I'm neutral. Like, I don't have really anything great to say about Qui-Gon. He's just that standard mentor character for me, which is necessary in a Star Wars film, especially when the main character is so young. Or, yeah, Anakin's really the main character when he's so young. So I like seeing that. I like the moments between the two when he's counseling Anakin, like the way he explains the midichlorians, even though I'm not a big fan of the concept. Just the scene is nice. I like the way how he puts so much trust in Anakin, in the way how he says when he wants to take Anakin as an apprentice, he's like, Obi-Wan's ready for the Jedi trials. And there's the scene where I believe it's right after they go back to Naboo at the end. He has this conversation with Obi-Wan where he's just like, you've become a much wiser Jedi than I am. Just those little nice moments I like with Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
But besides that, I mean, I don't have anything against Qui-Gon. I don't think he's as wise as people say he is just looking at the movie. But I do like the gray area to Qui-Gon. Like he does, manipulate the gambling with the dice with Watto. That's not something a Jedi really should be doing. So when I'm older and I look at that, I find that to be a little more interesting. And then after reading the lore, it's really cool. But yeah, I'd say those are my thoughts on Qui-Gon.
My tricks don't work on me. Only money. And I need something more real.
Yeah, that's the first thing that actually stood out to me about Qui-Gon was the fact that he wasn't as noble as you were led to believe that the Jedi were. Like you said, he's manipulating the dice. He's kind of being a little shady there on Tatooine.
He kind of has his own higher purpose that he thinks he's doing.
Yeah, he thinks he's doing this good thing, and it's really cutting a lot of corners. You know what I mean? It's interesting how he's bringing that about and kind of doing those things. But I still love his character, right, Tiff? Because it's Liam Neeson's. And I mean, Tiff, it's Liam Neeson's, right?
Qui-Gon.
Did you see Liam Neeson's in the Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon Jinn's? Did you see that? Did you see Liam Neeson's? He's all there with his lightsabers, all like,
I will find you.
Right.
You know what's kind of funny? I said earlier there was a period of time where I wasn't as into Star Wars. Like I got back into Star Wars, and it was pretty late, like maybe 2014, 2013. I'm watching the Phantom Menace. I'm like, that's Liam Neeson. Because when I was younger, I didn't know who Liam Neeson was.
It was Qui-Gon,
yeah. And then I watched Liam Neeson in the other movies like Taken, and then when I watched the Phantom Menace again, I'm like, I just never knew that Qui-Gon's like a famous actor. I just never knew that. So I just thought that was a funny thing to share.
Yeah, well, because Star Wars doesn't do that a lot. Well, at least they hadn't. Now they're kind of peppering it in here and there. But up to that point, we really hadn't seen a lot of that in Star Wars as far as that went. And so, yeah, it took an actual well-known actor, kind of, put some stuff on him, gave him a chic razor, and he was good to go. Tiff, what did you think of Liam Neeson's in the movie?
I actually really love Liam Neeson's. I feel the same of Nerdy in many ways. He was one of my favorites of the prequels. I've always liked him as an actor, so to see him in the Jedi robes and seeing him with a Padawan, I thought was very cool. I also kind of like the way that, he wasn't like this huge high standard, but, he had some things going on, like you guys said with the dice and, manipulating things there. But I like the side that he already had a Padawan when he took on Anakin, but he also knew that, Obi-Wan was not saying on his way out, but it was like he was almost already trained. So I see why he took that and the way that he took him kind of under his wing. And I really like that part. But I also think that's kind of how, he was training Obi-Wan. When you see Obi-Wan in 4, 5, and 6, the way that he's talking to Luke and stuff like that, I feel that is a lot of what he learned from Qui-Gon on how he became, a Jedi trainer and master himself. But plus Liam Neeson just kicks butt, so just to see him as a Jedi was super
Cool.
cool.
So what we're gonna do is because I don't want to spend. We obviously can't go through the entire cast, but but I do want to hit on a couple people, and that is what your takes are on Darth Maul, just from this movie, and then your takeaway of Darth Sidious from this film together.
Okay. I'll go. So Darth Maul, to me, again, it's I got to look at just the film because Clone Wars, I think he's fantastic. But when it comes to Darth Maul and just the film, he just represents everything I don't want to see in a villain. He's just that like standard villain. He doesn't even have a personality. He's kind of just there to look cool, to do these cool moves. I like my villains that are really calculated and have a lot of deep motivations, like Palpatine. Palpatine's not really in this movie much, but it's interesting to see, the beginnings of his rise to power and how he becomes Supreme Chancellor. So those scenes I like from Palpatine. And then there's the scene at the end where he says to Anakin, "I'll watch your career with best. I'll watch your." What does he say exactly? Like something with his best interest.
The little throw. We'll watch your progress with your career with great interest. Yes.
Yeah. So I like that's just like the little nice foreshadowing because we know, they're going to become, the two Sith. So yeah, I mean, neither one's in the movie that much. I mean, Maul's cool to look at. Ideally, he should be dead. I firmly stand by the belief that you shouldn't resurrect a character. But then again, Darth Maul, he was done so well in Clone Wars and Rebels, so it's like,
Yeah.
fine. That's like the only time I'll ever really give it a pass.
Yeah.
But now I think about it, Darth Maul really didn't need to serve a larger purpose in the story that George Lucas wanted to tell. I mean, if he really wanted to, maybe Darth Maul could have played the Qui-Gon type, not Qui-Gon, Count Dooku role, been a smaller villain throughout the 3 films, and then maybe he gets taken out by Obi-Wan in Episode 3, and then Order 66 happens, something like that. But I've come to peace. Like, Darth Maul is one of my favorite characters now. Like, to me, Darth Maul is an animated character, and then I was like, oh wait, yeah, Darth Maul, he was in the Phantom Menace. But yeah, so those are really my thoughts on those two.
Yeah.
As far as Darth Sidious and Darth Maul, I liked the sprinkled moments of Darth Sidious where he's communicating with the Viceroy of the Trade Federation, and how you can tell, again, early on he's manipulating things and he's trying to build up, and you know exactly where it's going to lead to, because I mean, you've seen the original trilogy, but you see the seeds planted there. And with Darth Maul, I can definitely see where Goldman's coming from, how he's definitely more of like a quiet kind of generic character, but like he has a really cool design. And also, like Goldman said, he ended up not needing to serve a higher purpose other than simply being a henchman for Darth Sidious, because again, we knew at some point that Darth Maul would at least be out of the picture to a certain extent. And I think one thing that I think is kind of cool about Darth Maul is, again, how kind of secretive he is as a character and how much we actually don't know about him, because he's the Phantom Menace. He's a mystery. He's as much mystery to us as he is to the Jedi, because when the Jedi hear about him, they're like, wait, no, the Sith have been gone for hundreds of years. Like, there's no way that they're here. And all of a sudden there's this phantom Sith Lord here. Like, who the heck is this guy? And so, again, we don't know as much about Darth Maul, or know any more about Darth Maul than the Jedi know, which I thought was kind of interesting. But at the same time, knowing more about him would have made the Duel of Fates, as good as that is, it would have made the Duel of Fates that much better if we knew at least something about him. But overall, I do like their inclusions here. I think Darth Maul has easily become one of the fan favorites of Star Wars overall, like Goldman was saying, with the Clone Wars as well as Star Wars Rebels, his inclusion in there, and just Star Wars in general. And there's a good reason for that. He's a great character.
Sure. How about you, Tiff?
I liked the way that they, added their flair to the movies. When it came to Darth Maul, I like my bad guys to be more than he was too. Like, he didn't talk much. He just kind of like did like the Brandon Routh, like, look and then do your scene kind of thing. But he was kind of like a kick butt eye candy in a weird way, because it's like he was fun to look at. The paint job was phenomenal, and he's just a great, martial artist. So I mean, just to see, that kind of stuff, I thought that was cool. And then I also really liked Darth Sidious, because it was just kind of cool seeing 4, 5, and 6 to kind of see, like, what the story was behind him, on how he got to that point. And what he was really doing behind the scenes.
Sure. Well, like I said earlier in kind of my comment at the beginning, is that when I first saw Darth Maul, I just anticipated what Darth Maul was going to be. I mean, my gosh, he looked like the devil. How much more evil could you get than that, right? I mean, like, he just kind of had that look. And then it was like when he says like just a couple of words in the entire movie, and there's none of that taunting there, that like when they're in the lightsaber duel, he's just silent and nobody's saying anything. And it was a different kind of lightsaber fight, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's just, it just was what it was. And I thought it felt a little silly to me watching the difference between Palpatine the Senator and Palpatine and Sidious, because it felt like they were somehow trying to like act like there was this possibility that they weren't the same person. And it was like, dude, you're not fooling anybody. We know this story. like, you know what I mean? Like that's the one thing about that's the one thing about prequels in general that gets lost on me, is that it doesn't feel like there's a sense of urgency,
and there's no secret that you can keep.
Yeah. It's just, it just is what it is. But, and then finally, because we'll give a shout out to both to Obi-Wan and Padme, but of course they appear more as the trilogy goes on, and so I don't want to spend a lot of time on them. And plus, really, there's not a ton of stuff. I mean, Padme, she's in there, she serves her purpose. She's a young queen. She's a little, rebellious. She's a little rambunctious. Mm-hmm. Did anybody fall for the switcheroo with the queen?
No,
I was too young. Like, I don't. No, I've rewatched the movies with a lot of friends, and I'm of the belief that if it's your first time watching and you know that Darth Vader is Luke's father, which pretty much everyone does, and I think chronological order is actually the best way to go. And some thoughts I have in mind are like, do people know that Sidious is Palpatine? And do you know that Padme is the queen? People usually figure out by Attack of the Clones that Palpatine is Sidious. Like, at that point, you just can't miss it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a few times people didn't see the Padme reveal coming. But it's not something that's like this plot twist or whatever. It's pretty easy to figure out.
Yeah.
Right. That was the thing with me with Padme is like at first when I was like a really, really little kid, like 4 or 5, I was thinking like, wait, what? She's the queen? No way. But then like watching when I'm like 10 or 11 years old, I'm looking at it just like, yes, wasn't much of a reveal much at all.
They kind of telegraph it a few times,
Yeah, because like there's a scene where Anakin goes to say goodbye to Padme and she's like getting ready. You can see like her expression's different than it usually is. And it's just like, okay. It was just weird that they it's kind of the same thing with Palpatine. Like they kind of tried to make it a secret, but not really. And that profile picture just scared the crap out of me right now. I didn't notice that was there.
I just snuck up on you there, nerdy.
I was like, oh gosh. But,
looking for the precious.
Yeah. The precious. But yeah, so that reveal wasn't very well, I guess, hidden.
Yeah.
But like I didn't mind it.
Yeah. No, I don't know, Tiff. When you watched it, I didn't tell you, but could you see it coming? I mean, I think by that time you knew who Natalie Portman was. I mean, even though she was young.
Yeah, well, both of them, I realized, even watching the old ones, not in chronological order, I knew that was coming, but the Natalie Portman thing, no, because I knew that Keira Knightley was also in there, and I'm like, she looks familiar, but so yeah, I saw that coming.
Well, and another thing is that in the original trilogy, they called him Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah,
so like when they say like Darth Sidious and then Senator Palpatine, it's like you're telling us. Like maybe the objective wasn't necessarily to hide it, but like the fact that he was in like slightly obscured
in plain sight.
I don't think they ever say Palpatine.
They don't. They don't. The action figure said Emperor Palpatine, because I remember when I was a kid, that was the first time I ever heard his name, because his name is not said in
Sheev.
Sheev. So here's a funny little side story. When Tiffany and I started dating. The day that we started dating, I actually asked her out on Facebook, and it was like a big thread with me and all my friends. And the thing was I had a bad day, and I made a funny joke, and I said, because I got into a fight with my son's mother, and I said, I'm being stupid. I said, I need a woman who's less fighty and more lovey. And so Tiffany chimed in, like, it's just one of my friends that we had gone on a date together, but she goes, well, I'm not fighty. And I went, are you applying for the job? And she's like, maybe. And so then I gave her this list of like questions, like nerd cred questions, and some of it was Star Wars, like
dating application.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was like, so when Luke was going, so when Luke was going to Tashi's station, what was he going to pick up? Right.
To get some power converters.
Right. And at the time, I asked her, I being silly, I said, what is Emperor Palpatine's first name? And that was before they had given him the first name Sheev. And there was all this speculation as to what his first name was at the time. And like whatever it was, the main thing that people thought it was at the time, Tiffany answered. And so I went ahead and went with that answer. But it's funny how that whole thing aged. Yeah, right. Sheev. What a name. Sheev. But yeah, that action figure was the first time I ever heard Palpatine, and so when you see it in the Phantom Menace, there's that. But Goldman, you brought up a really interesting point, because that's also one of the problems with prequels is you got to figure out how to watch them. Right? How do you watch these movies going forward? If you're gonna introduce somebody to them, how do you watch them? And like you bring up a good point. So if you just watched episode 1, you may not get that Palpatine is the Emperor. Is the Sith Lord, but
or who Anakin becomes.
Yeah, at first, but the thing is then you take away the ultimate surprise in Empire.
That's why I put the big disclaimer.
Yeah.
Do you know Darth Vader is Luke's father? Which I've met one person in my life who didn't know that. So there's a friend. Yeah.
I dated a girl that in 97, we went to go see The Empire Strikes Back, the special editions, and I took her to go see Empire. And literally we sat there, and when he said, Luke, I am your father. She looked at me. Thank you. She looked at me and she said, "Is that true?" And I went, "This might not work out."
We're watching the movie. That's what you should have said.
We're watching it. You tell me.
This might not work out.
This might not work out. I got up and left. That's what I did. I just got up and left. And
I have a similar story, but not with that. I was dating this girl, and she knew I was a big Star Wars fan. She hadn't seen it before, and she was nervous because she was afraid I would judge her if she asked a question. And I was like, "Listen, I promise you, if you ask a question, I'm not gonna get angry or mean. I'll try my best to answer." So we watched episode 4 first, and then she asked me at the end. She must have been sleeping. She said, "Did Luke fight for the rebellion or the Empire?" And I was just like, and I got angry. I'm like, at that point. At that point, were you watching the movie? What were you watching? And she's like, "Oh, I'm so confused." Yeah, that wasn't one of my highlights, but
this is over.
Because I did promise I wouldn't get mad, and I got mad. I'm just like,
I lied.
But yeah, that reminded me of that.
That's awesome. That is really good. But Obi-Wan's good in this movie, but he doesn't get a lot to do. I mean, obviously at the end he becomes the hero, and anything stand out? I mean, just real quick, anything stand out?
High ground.
Yes, in this not in this movie. He has the low ground in this movie.
That's true.
Which is a weird twist, but it is what it is. Anything.
Speaking of which, have you guys ever heard the song "I Have the High Ground"?
No.
Oh gosh, look up "I Have the High Ground" song. I literally listened to it on my Spotify. It's great. I love it. It's fantastic.
That's cool. Anything special stand out to you though about Obi-Wan in this movie?
It's you and McGregor.
That's true.
You got a rat tail.
Yeah,
rat tail. Yeah.
There's a couple kids in my school growing up that had rat tails. And
honestly, no. Like Obi-Wan doesn't really do anything in this movie. I mean, he fights Darth Maul. He spends all of Tatooine on the Naboo ship. I mean, he has I do like his line when they first meet Jar Jar. He's like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
we're like, this is a sentient being, and you're saying, "What is this?"
I also love when they get Anakin on the ship, where he's like, "Why do I get the feeling that we just got another lesser life form?" It's like, wow, he's a savage.
Yeah, Nick brings up a good point here, which can segue into just some of the other things. Is the reshoots, his wig, where it's like all of a sudden you're watching it and you're like, well, what in the world is that? Like, what is that on Obi-Wan's head, man? Like, what happened there? Like, the hair looks completely different. He looks completely different. There's that nervous little like thing that he does where he's just kind of like. It's just like that nervous little twitch look thing. But like when you think about this movie, guys, and what it set out to accomplish, this was reintroducing Star Wars back into the vernacular, like just supposed to inject Star Wars right back into things. And this was supposed to be George Lucas's like hurrah moment, to come back in. Do you think that it accomplished its goal?
I think it accomplished something different. I mean, it didn't necessarily like bring you like full on like here's Star Wars again, bam, in your face. It didn't do that, what I think this movie accomplished was, at least for me, and every time I watch it, I appreciate more and more about this movie, is the fact that when you look at the original trilogy, you hear like things about like there was an old republic, the Empire took over, like, you know, the galaxy's kind of, you know, oppressed and under a dictatorship with the Emperor, but you don't really know exactly what was lost. What the Phantom Menace strived to do was establish what was lost. And that's why there's so much politics in it. And that's one thing a lot of people tend to complain about. But like they had to establish exactly what kind of government was lost. What exactly was this the setup for the Galactic Republic? What was this thing? And so that's why we get a lot of those meeting scenes and like all the politics of like the Supreme Chancellor and all that good stuff. And I appreciate the effort in trying to like let us know, like, yes, this is the world that they lost. This is the world, or I guess the galaxy rather, that the Empire took over. This is what they did. This is what they destroyed, which I think is really, really cool, going from like episode 4 to episode 1 and just seeing that stark contrast of how things are run.
Oh, yeah. 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 What about you, Goldman? Do you think that they accomplished what they were trying to do here?
And then this is coming from someone whose least favorite Star Wars movie is The Phantom Menace by far. I think George Lucas did accomplish his goal, because I don't think George Lucas's number one goal or his main goal was to make a good movie. I think his main goal was to provide a film, as he says, for kids, a coming of age story, and look where the prequels are now. Now you could say it's mostly Revenge of the Sith and maybe Attack of the Clones that did that, but The Phantom Menace is what set up the world of the prequels. And again, going back to someone like me who has fond memories of playing with the toys and reenacting the battles, yeah, I would say The Phantom Menace was a success, because, you know, everything is judged in time. Obviously, when it came out, you know, people passionately hated it. But I watched a video before the stream, and it was like the first 10 minutes of this documentary, The People versus George Lucas.
Yes.
You know, just to get a better idea, because I've seen it before, but it's been a while, just to get a better idea of the reaction to The Phantom Menace, what people were expecting, and then how they reacted. And at the end of this 10-minute segment that I watched, they were talking about Jar Jar, and they had a bunch of these little kids and these older people, and they asked them what did they think, and they're like, "Oh, I love the film. You know, I love Jar Jar. He's so funny." And then the older people will be like, "Huh, you know, I don't really like Jar Jar." Then at the end of the day, George Lucas, he said it many times, and people love to deny it, but it's true. The main demographic for Star Wars is for kids, and the success of the prequels now. I mean, think about it. People are clamoring for Hayden Christensen to come back as Anakin.
Yeah.
Imagine,
you didn't see that in 2005. You did not see
imagine that in the late 2000s or before The Force Awakens. Imagine that's a crazy notion, and now it's a reality. So
yeah, people are literally ticked off that he did not show up.
So yeah, when you look at that,
again, look at that. Nice.
Yeah, love Anakin.
You can say that's mostly because of the other films, but again, The Phantom Menace set that foundation for the other two films. Yeah. So in that respect, again, coming from someone who doesn't like the film at all, I definitely think The Phantom Menace succeeded.
Huh. That's a real interesting take, because you just don't think about some of those things sometimes, like who Anakin was at the time and what he became in those prequels, and then wow.
Because sometimes when I think about like Star Wars, you know, people think when you're making a film, the main goal is to make the best movie that you can, you know, which is obviously something you want to do, regardless of what kind of movie you're making. But I think George Lucas understood people, or understood children better. Like, yeah, sure, he could give, you know, a better job with the politics and stuff, but I don't think that was what George Lucas wanted to do. I think if George Lucas wanted to make the best movie possible, he could have made something much better. But then would we be talking about The Phantom Menace, what, 20 years later? Maybe. Yeah. Maybe not. But not right now. The prequels are beloved. So,
yeah. And it's a strange take. Tiff, knowing, I mean, obviously you know, in our house, we live, breathe Star Wars. You know, we got Star Wars rooms of our house and everything. Do you think that it accomplished what it is now, looking back? Because obviously you didn't see it when it came out, you saw it later on. What do you think now about that?
I have to kind of agree with the other guys on the panel, but just because even if we as fans didn't like it, and the way that everything kind of just came about with but the fact that George Lucas said he was going to give us a Star Wars movie, and he did. So I think in that aspect, yes, he did accomplish it. Did everyone love it? That's where people see that it should be an accomplishment. But he gave us the movie. He did make it family friendly, kid friendly, and I think that it accomplished what he wanted. He said he wanted it, but I think he also had a lot of yes men around him. So there was a lot of things that were put in that movie because they said, yes, Mr. Yeah, we'll do that for you. Don't worry about it. We'll put some more, special effects.
Yeah.
We'll put a poop joke in there, sure.
Exactly.
Can I say one more thing about one more thing. I think people forget this when they talk about like, did the prequels succeed? One thing that was amazing about George Lucas, and this is why we should thank him every day for the movies we have today. Every movie he did, he wanted to push the boundaries of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it's funny to say, but if it wasn't for Jar Jar Binks, we would have not had Gollum.
Yep.
Right.
So
that's a great point.
So in that respect, absolutely George Lucas succeeded.
There he is. There he is, right there in the corner down there by Nerdy.
Literally the face of many of my childhood nightmares.
we keep him down in there in the basement for you, buddy.
So remember, next time you watch Lord of the Rings, if it wasn't for George Lucas and Jar Jar Binks, we would not have gotten Andy Serkis as Gollum.
And if it wasn't for those early Star Wars films with all the green screen they used, I mean, there was a lot of films that used green screen before, but like to the extent that he did, we wouldn't have movies like, for example, like 300 utilized a ton of like blue and green screen.
Entire worlds created.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that, and those are really, really great points because George has continued to change movie making. As he's gone along, and I mean, and that's why there's so many people. I mean, that's why so many movies are made with through Lucasfilm, through Skywalker Sound, through all those things, because he's literally on the cusp of technology, always, and his companies have been, and that's just some really good points for that, for sure. Now, as we start to bring this to an end, because this is not going to be one of those 3-hour streams where we're just going to go on and wax on about the movie. But I do want.
I thought the same thing.
What's that? Oh.
He did wax on, wax off.
Wax on,
wax off. As we bring it to a close, I want to just 2 more points, because you brought up that for the most part it's a kids movie. It's
younglings.
And I agree with you so much. I agree with you so much, Goldman. Like, I don't understand what it is, why Star Wars fans can't seem to get themselves to the point where they admit that these are kids movies. It's okay that we love them. It's all right. It's all right. I could be a grown adult and still like Star Wars, and it can still be for kids. And you know what? Yes, there can even be some deaths in a movie made for kids. It's okay. But just real quick, something I just thought about, because you're talking about technology. Real quick, what did you guys think of the pod race scene?
I don't think it has a great rewatchability factor. There's one thing someone pointed out to me. It's kind of forever ruined the pod race scene for me, but almost every shot of the pod race is just panning from left to right. There's there's never a shot on the other side where you see it go right to left. So like every time I watch it, I'm just like, I would have directed it differently, but I'm not a director. What do I know? But just something I noticed. And, obviously the effects were something that were groundbreaking. But for me, it doesn't wow me anymore. So it just, it's fun. It's just like, it's cool. I like the noises of the, I forget which is the who is driving the pod race, but the one that goes dug 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 dug. What's his name? Was it Saboba? Saboba's pod race?
Yeah, I think.
I think it was his. So I like listening to that. I love the sound. But yeah, that's all I say about the pod race.
I think the pod races were a very intriguing idea because, like, it's like galaxy building, or I guess world building is a better term with movie making, but getting us into this world where like these speeders and that this high technology was used for something other than like transportation or war or just simple like like that normal speeder that Luke used in episode 4. They could be used for like, it's basically this galaxy's NASCAR, only more dangerous. which I thought was kind of cool. They had that concept in there. And I agree with Goldman. Some of the cinematography of how they shot those scenes isn't necessarily aesthetically pleasing. And it's actually the pod race scene, as cool of a concept as it is, it's one of those few scenes that you can just simply like skip through and get to the end and still be okay. Like you can just kind of skip through it. Be like, all right, he won the pod race. All right, let's move on to the rest of the movie.
Yeah. No, Tiff, what do you think of the pod race?
For a pod race, it was very slow.
It does feel like it takes forever.
Well, it's one of those things for me that it seemed like a good idea, maybe on paper, maybe in concept, but it just was poorly executed for me. And now that he mentioned the going, maybe it was just all of it combined, but it just, we've seen, races, car races, NASCAR, stuff like that. And, it just didn't have that excitement. It didn't have, and maybe you had, Annie saying, oh, spinning, that's a neat trick. Like all these little weird things that I don't know. It just wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, it's there to kind of set up at the end where it's like he can pilot, he can fly. So, there's good things there. Look, I was never a fan of the pod race, to be honest with you. I was the most excited I got in the pod race. The pod racing. The pod race. Yes, in the pod race. Where do you like the pod race? The biggest thing was when I saw what's her name? Ayla Secura?
Aura Singh.
Aura Singh. I'm sorry. Aura Singh. Yes. Aura Singh. You're absolutely right. When I saw Aura Singh, like I was the only one of my friends who caught that. Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, did you see that? Like that was like a thing, and it was like, there's that chick that I have that action figure, like who is that? Then later on when they fleshed out her character, it was nice to see that, but yeah, I get it. Christopher, he's in here. He's like, no rewatchability. Are you out of your mind? It is still awesome. Like everybody got something different out of there. It seemed
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I get this, and trust me, TW, this is not lost on me because I love Ben-Hur. Yes. I love Ben-Hur. So I get the concept of it. But it just feels like it drags on. It feels very self-serving in the movie to me.
Mm-hmm. Time-wise, it's not extremely long, but it does feel like it kind of drags.
Yeah.
It just feels like that. But I want to go around, and I'd like for you guys to just share from your thoughts, your overall thoughts of the movie, what you think the impact of the movie is, whether it be fallout or whether it be a good thing. I think we've already kind of got some of those feelings kind of mixed in there, but let's talk about what you think are some of your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. Kind of sum up your episode 1 experience in just a couple minutes. Why don't we start with you, Nerdy?
All right, yeah. I think one of my favorite things about this film is how much more in episode 1 lightsabers are used than compared to the rest of the original trilogy. Because like my thing with Star Wars, that Star Wars has the coolest fictional weapon ever imagined, like ever. Like everyone wants a lightsaber. Even people that aren't Star Wars fans, they want a lightsaber, right? A lightsaber is just freaking awesome. And in episode 1, they use it a ton of times, and it's great. They have arguably the best fight scene with lightsabers ever in Star Wars episode 1. Of course, maybe you can compare that to like maybe Return of the Jedi or episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Those 3 are the top ones, and Duel of Fates is definitely one of them. And I love those fight scenes. I love the utilization of those weapons. I love the fact that they actually like fight well with them and have like masterful moves with them. And it's not like Luke just like lunging, or like Darth Vader just like, or, old Obi-Wan Kenobi like acting like he just woke up and just like,
yeah.
But I loved the utilization of lightsabers. I loved seeing, again, the world building, letting us see like how the galaxy was before the original trilogy, all that being established. I loved the fact that, again, George Lucas tried to, again, like we mentioned, up the ante with the technology, try to get all the graphics and stuff, and establishing Coruscant and things like that. So all those things are reasons why I hold Star Wars Episode 1 in a special place in my heart. Because, again, all things that tried to accomplish and all things that it did accomplish when it comes to my favorite weapon ever, the lightsaber.
Nice. Tiffany,
Yes.
what are when you think, sum up what it is for you?
Well, seeing the original in the old order, or not the old order, but the old movies first, and then seeing this one, this trilogy. So starting here, I thought it was completely different than the first ones, and I knew it had to be different because of how far apart it was. But I did love the lightsabers. I love the fact that they showcased them so much more than the old ones, just because it's like they didn't use them enough in the old ones. So it was kind of like George's way of being like, I'm using them as much as I can.
Using all the lightsabers.
Yes.
Yes. There's even purple ones now.
Yes. That's why when I made mine in Galaxy's Edge, I put a purple kyber crystal in there. So
nice.
Just because it's fun. But I loved any scene that had Liam Neeson's in it. Just because I did love Qui-Gon. Like I said, I didn't absolutely hate Jar Jar, but it was different. I can see where it was family friendly and kid friendly. But I think it's also funny though to me because Star Wars is so multi-generational. It's our kids we saw it, or maybe we watched with our parents and now we're showing our kids and they're going to show their kids. Same thing with Back to the Future, same thing with Indiana Jones. So I think it's funny that maybe we don't get it because we're adults and it's like he wasn't pandering to the adults at the time. But we wanted, we're still that big kid. And so to me, he accomplished what he set to do. He made a Star Wars movie. Just maybe it wasn't what I was expecting because he did it a certain way for 4, 5, and 6. Then he went a whole different direction for 1, 2, and 3. So I still liked it for what it was. And the more I watch it, the more I fall more in love with it. So there's still things about it that I love.
Yeah, that sense of wonder, that childlike wonder about it that can make you appreciate it. Goldman, your summation.
So for me, The Phantom Menace, I don't really have anything nice to say about the story. It's just a film I really don't like, unfortunately. But when I watch this film, I have a lot of respect for it. One of my favorite things about this film is how unique it is. Because when you look at the originals, it's Han, Luke, and Leia. It's the Empire versus the Rebels, like all 3 movies. The sequels, Rafe and Poe, Kylo, Resistance versus First Order, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. It's the Separatists versus Republic. You have Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme, like Mace Windu. Palpatine's more important. Count Dooku's there. And then you look at The Phantom Menace. It really is kind of like a spin-off film. Like, we get the introduction of Anakin and the beginning of this relationship between these characters. But just so we got Liam Neeson there. Anakin's a different actor. Jar Jar plays a significant role. We see a lot of different planets. So I just love how unique it is from the other films because to me, it really does feel like a spin-off film. So when I'm watching it, it feels different than if I'm watching Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Also, maybe this is just me, but when I watch Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, they feel like modern movies, especially Revenge of the Sith. Like I think the graphics on Revenge of the Sith still look really good. Attack of the Clones, it's a little dated, but it still feels modern. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's just because it was film and not digital. But Phantom Menace feels like an older movie to me. So, and I have an appreciation for watching older films. So when I'm watching it, I'm not really paying attention to the story because I know the story so well. I just like looking at some of the other aspects of it. I'm like, okay, this is the only time you really get to see Liam Neeson in Star Wars. I'm going to appreciate that. Even Jake Lloyd wasn't, he's a kid. He's not going to be a great actor. Right. It's a different take on Anakin Skywalker. Padme, she's a queen and she's really young. It's just another take, like another interesting way to look at Star Wars. So that's my favorite thing about the Phantom Menace is just when I watch it, the uniqueness of it.
I like your crazy makeup.
Yeah.
Are you an angel?
Are you an angel? What?
So this is actually one of those times that like there's some interesting dialogue that I think is overlooked sometimes in Star Wars that like we don't think about that like makes no sense given what we know about Star Wars. Like, are you an angel? That's an interesting concept, right? Because that's more of an Earth kind of concept. Also, I also think it's funny that like letters are introduced for ships. Like an A-wing or a B-wing or an X-wing, and then where it really stands out to me is actually, and we'll talk about this much later on, but the introduction of when Poe is talking to Hux and he's like, I'm waiting for Hux, with an H, and they don't use English letters. So how?
Never thought about that.
what is that, right?
It's also like when they say hell sometimes, like see you in hell. Like,
Yeah.
You know, but hey, it's you know what? Technically, it's in a galaxy far, far away, and this guy traversed that galaxy. So
He did?
So what do you know? You know, but for me, look, it's a Star Wars movie, so I enjoy it. I enjoy it for what it is. It's not my go-to Star Wars movie, obviously. I like parts of it, but it is my least favorite Star Wars movie. If I'm being honest, I think for me, I wish that they had started Anakin Skywalker pretty much where they started him in Episode 2. I don't feel like I needed to see Darth Vader as a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old or whatever. You know what I mean?
Interesting thing about Anakin, though, that I recently found out. I don't know why it took me so long to figure this out, but there's actually a deleted scene of the Phantom Menace where it shows Anakin being bullied by the kids, and Anakin just like pummels a kid.
Yes,
which would have been cool to include because it would have shown his darker parts of his persona earlier on, rather than like more of a dramatic shift from young Anakin to all of a sudden him like destroying Tusken Raiders in Episode 2.
Well, that's it, because he's so cutesy and nice in Episode 1, where it's just like, you know, like I said, you know, are you an angel, or let's try spinning, you know, like let's you know, like just all these kind of silly little one-liners that are fitting for a 9-year-old kid. Trust me, they're fine. But like I sometimes I look at that and then and then it's like when I look at Darth Vader and I'm like, oh man, I just really it kind of like it kind of takes you out of who Darth Vader is. You know, where if you start him as a teenager, even who's been through some stuff, you know, I mean, and it sucks because he loses his mom, and I can relate with some of that, you know, and but it's still it's weird, like the oopses, you know, like oops, you know, and you know,
there's plenty of moments of obvious ADR. Like when he wins the pod race, he says, "We did it! Yeah!" It's obviously not what he's saying.
I want to say something. Nerdy, I'm so glad you brought up that deleted scene, because if that scene wasn't in the movie, it'd probably be my favorite scene in the movie. But there's one thing that I love that you didn't mention. Do you know who that character was that he beat up in that deleted scene?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. Was it like the green alien boy?
Close. Well, it was Greedo.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And then also in that deleted scene, as my favorite quote in the movie, where Qui-Gon says, or because Anakin says that Greedo said he cheated, and then Qui-Gon's like, Greedo, do you think Anakin cheated? He's like, yes. And he's like, well, Annie, you know the truth. You'll just have to tolerate his opinion. Fighting won't change it. And I'm just like, I've said that before to the fandom. Like, just gotta tolerate his opinion. Fighting won't change it. I love that deleted scene. I'm so glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
Wish it was in the movie.
That's so for me that
cut.
So that's for me is kind of is some of those things. Plus, I'll be honest with you. I love the lightsaber stuff. I do like that stuff. One of the problems that I have, and people don't understand this about me, like they think I'm crazy when I say this a lot of times, but I think I don't like the staged lightsaber fights. It's too ballet. It's too much of, hey, I'm gonna be here, so you be here. It's too well thought out and choreographed for me, where it's like I love the anguish and just like the fighting for your lifestyle of Luke versus Vader in the original trilogy. I feel like that holds more emotion for me than when it looks cool. It looks very cool when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon take on Darth Maul, and they're spinning all around and they're, you know, flipping lightsabers and everything's going on. But it's like, you know, when Darth Maul like reaches out in the Force and he throws the thing at the control box, you know, and opens up the door and everything. It's just like, it's all very much like, man, if I was there, I'd be like hacking and like slicing this guy and trying to kill this dude because he's a Sith, and like 1,000 years the Sith have been gone. Like, what the heck are you doing here? And you know, it's just it's kind of weird like that to me. And like I said, just the fact that Anakin is a little too cutesy for me. But look, at the end of the day, it's a Star Wars movie, and like you said, Goldman, it does kind of feel like it's its own thing, like it's a spin-off, like it's kind of like it's the first a Star Wars story. right? Like it's its own little thing. But you know what? It's Star Wars, guys.
Yeah.
And even though it's not my favorite, like Goldman started us off tonight, and we're going to see more and more. I think the more we go into this, is that, like you said, somebody's least favorite Star Wars movie is somebody else's favorite Star Wars movie.
Right.
And I've met people who love the Phantom Menace. They just absolutely love it, and I respect that. I respect the fact that there are people who love the Phantom Menace. Yes, Seaver. I don't like Star Wars at all.
Coming from Ryan,
I can't stand it. I can't stand it at all. But yeah, I just I dig it, and it's an interesting start to the series. You know, if you're looking at it from that direction, I don't know if it's set out necessarily to do what I think it's set out to do. Because I looked at it a lot, like I felt like it set out to sell a lot of toys, and it did. This whole collection, guys, how I got started into actually collecting Star Wars stuff was my cousin went to the midnight opening at Toys R Us, and he called me up and he said, "Hey, I'm going to the Star Wars thing. You want to go?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm not going to that. Like, I'm not collecting toys." And he's like, "Okay." And he says, "You sure you don't want me to pick you something up?" I'm like, "Well, if they got an extra Darth Maul, get me a Darth Maul. He looks cool." And honestly, he bought me a Darth Maul, and then I was like, "Oh, you know what? I should probably." Once I saw the movie, I was like, "I should get an Obi-Wan. I should get a Qui-Gon." And then it was like, then I debated, guys, whether or not I should open it. I debated whether or not I should open it because that Darth Maul was going to be worth money one day. Yeah, but you know, it just is what it is at this point. But you know,
I'm glad you brought that up actually about toys. There was 2 summers ago, I was working with this guy who did lawn care for different like wedding venues and stuff. And there was one place we went to that they had weddings in like massive barns, right? They had one barn for like the wedding at the bottom part and like a little apartment on the top where like families would stay. And then another barn that they had was just full of storage. This guy's just stuff, like tons of old Coca-Cola bottles, but he had this entire row in the middle of the barn with just all of this episode 1 merchandise.
Yes.
So much episode 1 merchandise. And they were like giving us a tour of the place, like telling us what they wanted us to do. And I was sitting there like, maybe I could sneak one. But then my conscience said like, no, don't do it. It's like, okay, fine. But it was such a cool collection to see. Like they had like the what's it called? Lunch boxes. They had the figures. They had like board games. They had all this stuff. It's like, goodness gracious, this is a massive collection. It's like Enosh.
Tons of merchandise. Tons of merchandise for episode 1. And it's like, look,
we just got an R2 cooler yesterday.
Yeah. If you bought episode 1 merchandise thinking that it was going to be worth something one day, I'm so sorry, because it's the most common stuff that you can't give away to people. Like I remember collecting all the Pepsi cans and Diet Pepsi cans and all those cans stuff, and I got a full set of them like right up here, guys. And you know, it just is what it is. Like, but I still see people try to sell it on like Facebook Marketplace. Like it's like $300 for a complete set of cans, and it's like, no.
I'm good. I'm good.
No, I'm good. I'm just fine. All right. So one thing that I want to do, I want to have fun with the last thing that we're going to do tonight, and that is I want to go around the panel, but I'd also like everybody in the chat to reach down deep, and I want you to tell me your favorite character from this movie, your least favorite character, and one of the most memorable lines. Go, Tiff.
My favorite character is Liam Neeson's.
Yep.
My least favorite character in that movie was actually Anakin. And did you say the most memorable line?
Yeah.
Good or bad?
Either. Just whatever.
I honestly, I'm not sure. That's not one that I've watched. That's probably the one I've watched the least. Because it's not my favorite. But probably something that Jar Jar said.
All right, Nerdy.
My favorite character, I'm torn between. Actually, no, I'll probably have to agree with Tiff. I have to go with Qui-Gon. I just love him in that movie. As little of a role as he tended to have. My least favorite character, it's between Anakin or Jar Jar. As much as like, you know, we talk about Jar Jar and like it makes sense for what George Lucas was trying to do to a certain extent, but like Both those guys are just not a fan. My favorite line or most memorable line is, "The ability to speak does not make you intelligent."
Yes.
I like that line quite a bit.
Yes.
Because that just applies directly to Twitter. Honestly, you can say that on Twitter because it works.
Yes.
Okay, so my least favorite character. See, it's hard for me to say because I don't particularly like the characters in this film, like any of them really. So they're all kind of close.
Yeah.
I guess maybe my least favorite would be Obi-Wan, just because I wish we got more of him and he didn't do anything. I guess it's just I want more from him, and since I'm disappointed. Maybe that would be the word I'd use, the most disappointing character. And favorite, maybe I'll say the character I enjoy watching the most, honestly, would be Jar Jar. Like he's the only character in that film that you understand his entire motivations. He's very multidimensional. He's annoying, but you understand where he comes from. He has different layers to his personality, and sue me, but he makes me laugh sometimes. So yeah, I'd say, I don't want to say favorite, but character I'm most entertained by would be Jar Jar. And then quote, I don't know, Misa Jar Jar Binks, Misa your humble servant. I'll say that.
Hey, there you go. There you go. Yeah. For me, I also have to say that Qui-Gon is he's just a cool character that I think we all wish that we would have seen more of, and we'll talk about how, you know, as we get into this later on, that the rumors of his return, you know, to this trilogy. But yeah, he's my favorite. My least favorite, man, it's such a toss up because like you, Goldman, there's so many characters that it's like they're just kind of there for me. I'll be honest with you, the one that gets on my nerves even more so than and it's kind of funny because it was mentioned in here. Somebody, Darth Tacey, Viceroy Gunray.
Oh yes, yeah, no, he's my least favorite too.
Oh my god. Like I hated the way he talked. What?
Ruler of the Sand.
What did you say?
Shoot the. Oh, that's Attack of the Clones. Shoot something.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I actually love
this
the
is
one
impossible.
Lord Sidious, he promised us peace.
Have you ever encountered a Jedi before? Just oh my gosh. It's so bad. It's just oh my gosh. Like what? What did you say?
I take back my answer. Viceroy Gunray is my least favorite character.
Release the droidicas. I hated that word. I hated that word so bad. It's like
they're no match for droidicas.
They're no match for droidicas. But I did love the one chick on here, and I'm trying to find somebody commented on it. I think it was Nicotina. Yes. They've gone up the ventilation shaft.
You must be mistaken.
I do not know. I did not hear about this. You know, it's just, yeah. He just gets on my last nerve. But if I have to go with like a favorite, maybe saying there are a lot of good one-liners. I will say in this movie for being the type of movie it is. There are a lot of good one-liners. But one thing that I always go back to is Boss Nass. And even though he's not one of my favorite characters, I love when he's talking. He's like, and he like even though he's been manipulated with the Force, he's like, the fastest way to the Naboo is going through the planet core. So there you go.
Be gone with him.
Oh well, you know, Master of None, you're right. I mean, Watto's a great one too. I mean, Watto, man, little shiesty guy that he is, you know, just oh my gosh. But when he comes back, Annie, you know,
Annie.
Oh my gosh. So it's just fun. But hey, thank you guys for joining us tonight for the first of these. Obviously, this is the first one. We got to get our legs underneath of us, just like episode 1. It's, you know, we got to get things rolling, right? But I'm glad we started this thing. We kind of know now where we're going, and I'm looking forward to tackling what for some, even people who liked the Phantom Menace was a kind of a left turn for him. So we'll be going after Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. One of the most unusual names for a Star Wars movie. But hey, guys, at the end of the day, like we said, it's all Star Wars. And I think we all have to love Star Wars. I saw one comment in here that said that we're all crazy, and I don't know if you can't tell like how something is written, you know. But I do want to say that like none of us here are trying to be harsh against the movie or anybody who loves the films. That's not the point of this series. The point of this series is to point out that even though we may not like certain things, it's okay. Because we can still like other parts of it, and we can see how it fits into the overall story, and we can appreciate it for what it is. Is it the one we're going to pop in like when we first think of Star Wars? No. But the point of this is that no matter if you like the prequels, don't like the prequels, like the sequels, hate the sequels, if you're somebody that none of us understand and you don't like the original trilogy, like whatever, it's Star Wars. And if you're here, you probably love Star Wars. And that's what we want to remind you about is what was it that made you fall in love with this franchise? Maybe not certain movies, maybe not certain cartoons or TV shows or whatever. But at the end of the day, just remember your love for Star Wars and treat new Star Wars products. And I say products, but like, you know, new shows, new movies with a level of respect that you don't just go in saying, well, I'm going to hate this just to hate it. But I'm going to see it for what it is and realize that somebody appreciates this and they like it. And even if I don't, you know, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I just need to gather myself up and watch the next one. Because we all know that when you spend $4.5 billion on something, you don't stop making new content. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thanks to everyone who was in the chat. You guys are awesome as always. You guys are fantastic. Thank you guys for joining us. Share the video with others. Share the video with someone. And if you have not seen Star Wars, hey,
go. It's your homework.
Go watch Star Wars. If it's been a while since you've watched episode 1, go watch episode 1. You know, let's do it. And Darth Tasty, you can actually, this is a great segue. You can see the hashtag I Love Star Wars here. Darth Tasty has a great Facebook page, hashtag I Love Star Wars. It was actually kind of inspired by our little campaign. And you know what? Go do that. Also, here on the channel, you can actually find, we've got some great t-shirts. And one of our t-shirts, we actually have one that says hashtag I Love Star Wars. I have spoken. And then we have one that says hashtag I Love Star Wars Poindexter Lounge. And so we would love for you to pick one of those up if you are so inclined. Thank you to everyone who's a part of the Poindexter Lounge. You guys are just fantastic. You're awesome. We love you all. And I think basically we could just say, may the Force be with you and treat each other well. And you know what? Put a little money back because, well, you know, Life Day's coming up. All right. And that's a whole other story there unto itself. All right, guys. Until next time, I'm Enosh. Stay nerdy. Bye-bye.